Threadlings. Infinite amounts of threadlings for this build. This build is very good for ad clear if you guys are into that. So we're going to be getting tons and tons of threadlings because we're going to get multiple ways to spawn them. So if you guys like to get infinite amounts of unraveling rounds, sever targets, and also spawning in tons of threadlings, then this build is for you. The dim link will be in the description if you're interested. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's first start off with this exotic armor piece you're going to need to use for this build. It is called the Swarmers. Here's what it does. Whenever you destroy a tangle, it would spawn in a threadling. Your threadlings unravel targets whenever they hit them. Let's head to the Broodweaver subclass. For the abilities, be sure to go for Healing Rift to give you tons of healing and for more survivability. And you can also unravel targets whenever you hit a target with your melee ability. For the Strand Grenade, of course, go for Threadling Grenade because you can 1, either consume this grenade, or 2, you can throw them, and once you throw them, it would summon 3 threadlings. For the aspects, the first one is Mind Spun Invocation. This one will enhance your Threadling Grenades, so whenever you consume them, it would immediately give you 5 threadlings at a time. So let's just say you already summoned 3 threadlings and they're already inside of you. Pause. And if you were to consume your grenade, you would actually get 2 instead of 5 because we already have 3 threadlings. For the next aspect I chose to put is Weaver's Call. Whenever you cast your Rift, it would spawn in 3 threadlings, and also if you do have any threadlings that are perched onto you, it would also be deployed as well. So for this one, let's just say we have 5 threadlings that are perched onto us, and then if we were to cast our Rift ability, so it would spawn in 8 threadlings at once. So for the fragments, be sure to go for Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage, and you would also get plus 10 intellect. The second fragment is Thread of Rebirth. Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create a threadling, so in this build we are going to be having 2 strand weapons from our kinetic and heavy weapon slot. For the third fragment, go for Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy, but it would give you minus 10 discipline. I chose to put this one just because I want to get more grenade energy for my threadlings so I can be able to consume it more often. And for the final fragment, go for Thread of Continuity. Suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration, so the only ones that are going to apply for this build is either unravel or sever. Now let's head to the weapons. For the kinetic weapon, I'm using this Strand Grenade Launcher that you could be able to get this from Iron Banner, called Tusk of the Boar. And here are the perks that I do recommend you should be going for. For the first perk column slot, go for Slice. Casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration, up to a maximum number of targets. And to make this grenade launcher even more broken, be sure to go for this other perk called the Chain Reaction. Each final blow with this weapon creates an elemental damage explosion. And for the origin trait, there's actually 2, but this one is more better. It's called Field Tested. Defeating targets or dealing damage with this weapon gradually increases range, stability, handling, and reload speed. For the energy weapon, I put the Solar Bow just because I want to be able to stun unstops, but here's what it does. So whenever you hit fire with this weapon, it would have multiple tracking projectiles. Targets hit by these projectiles explode on death, or when struck by another Sacred Flame explosion. So the main thing you gotta do is to 1, hit fire the target, be sure to ADS and pull your bow all the way back, and then get a precision hit to make that minor explosion. And if you do have the catalyst, here's what it does. So perfectly drawn arrows that detonate Sacred Flames increases the arrow damage. Striking targets unaffected by Sacred Flames instead refreshes casualty arrows duration. For the power weapon, I put this Strand Grenade Launcher just because of the perks. The first one you need to put is Reconstruction. This weapon reloads itself at an improved rate over time up to double capacity. So for me, my magazine size is 8, so if you would times that by 2, it would be 16. And for the main perk for this grenade launcher you want to put is Hatchling. Precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with this weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. Here's how to use this build. You're going to 1, consume your threadling grenades to give yourself 5 threadlings, and then activate your Rift ability to summon 8 threadlings at a time. Once those threadlings hit those targets, and if they do survive, be sure to hit them with either your strand weapons or your bow to 1, spawn in the threadlings, and 2, whenever you hit a target with your Tusk of the Boar, it would proc Sever to that target as well. So whenever they hit you while they got hit by Sever, they will deal less damage to you. And of course, the grenade launcher we have shoots very fast, so if you are dealing with the boss, spray and pray while he's procced with unraveling rounds to also spawn in those threadlings. So the grenade launcher, or should I say the heavy grenade launcher, is good for big bosses, and for the wave launcher is good for these minor combatants. And also too, for the tangle, you can either throw them to spawn in the threadlings, or 2, you can destroy them with your weapons as well. Either of of those two would work. And also what's even better is that whenever you activate your super, you're also going to spawn in threadlings as well. I do believe it's either 7 to 8 threadlings whenever you cast your super, but if I'm wrong, be sure to let me know in the comments. And as what you guys are seeing here, these are the seasonal artifact mods that I was using for this build. So here are the main ones that are going to buff this build. So we are mostly using grenade launchers. So for the second column, it's called Blast Radius. Rapid final blows with rocket launchers or grenade launchers grant armor charges to yourself. And the other two are Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an orb of power grants strand weapons unraveling rounds. And the second one, Horde Shuttle. Damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. And I also do want to mention that the ones that are going to buff your bow are Kindling Trigger. Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. And this one isn't primarily buffing the bow, but I just want to mention that this fragment called Flame, Fiber, and Freeze, it would combine solar/strand siphon mods into one. And the energy cost for that is going to be 3. The next one is Flint Striker. Rapid solar weapon precision hits and rapid solar weapon final blows grants Radiant. The next one is Torch. While Radiant deal increased damage to combatants affected by strand and stasis debuffs. So we are using strand, so the debuffs are going to be unraveling rounds. And also Sever. And the last one is Rays of Precision. While Radiant solar precision final blows causes combatants to ignite. So for the champions, you can only be able to stun anti-barrier champions because 1, we are getting unraveling rounds from our grenade launchers, and 2, we are getting Radiant from our exotic bow. And for unstoppable champions, we are using a bow because of the seasonal artifact mods. Now let's head to the stats. The main 2 stats that I do recommend you going for is 1, recovery, because 1, we are on Warlock, so it would reduce the cooldown of your class ability, and 2, it would increase the speed at which you regained lost health. And the second one, be sure to go for resilience just because of that damage reduction. And I didn't mention to go for discipline because we already have this fragment called Thread of Generation, but yeah, it's not that much grenade energy, but it will do. And for the armor mods, here's what I was using. The main ones I do want to mention is on the Warlock Bond called Utility Kickstart. Long story short, the more armor charges you have, and if you were to activate your Rift, it would steal those armor charges and convert that into more class ability energy. And on the leg armor, I am using Elemental Charge, so whenever we destroy a Tangle, we would have an escalating chance to give us an armor charge. And for the chest, I am using Charged Up, so it would increase the number of stacks we could be able to carry by 1, so we are going to be holding 4 charges instead of 3. And I also do want to mention on the helmet, I am using Solar/Strand Dual Siphon, so it would combine Solar and Strand Siphon into one, but as what your guys are seeing is Solar Siphon, but it's actually Strand/Solar Siphon. If you found this video informative or you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, evening, or afternoon. Take care and peace. Join the Discord!